In this episode, we're going to talk about natural consequences. The beauty of natural consequences is that they can happen naturally without any intervention from you as a parent. Sometimes experience really can be the very best teacher. There are times when natural consequences make sense and times when they're not okay. We will discuss both of these. But first, a few ideas about consequences in general. Consequences are the result of a child's behavior. There are generally two types of consequences: natural consequences and logical consequences. We will go into much more detail about logical consequences in the sister episode to this one. As a general rule, any consequence is likely to be more effective at helping a child to learn from their experience when the consequence occurs fairly close to the behavior. For example, if a child spends money they earned on candy, they won't have money to buy something several weeks later. This kind of learning experience is less effective because the cost is weeks apart from the choice of spending money on candy now. If, on the other hand, they eat too much candy and as a result have a tummy ache, that would be a more immediate cost. They would learn quicker. When possible, it can be very helpful for the child if you help them to think out the cost of a choice they're making. For example, if you leave your baseball glove in the yard and it rains, it may get ruined. If you don't send your favorite shorts down to be washed, they won't be ready to wear when you want to take them to school tomorrow. If you don't turn your homework assignment in, you won't get a good grade. If you don't wear a raincoat, you may get wet if it rains. If you don't wear your jacket this winter, you may get cold. If you forget to take your boots and mittens to school, you may have to play inside for recess instead. If you forget your gear for practice after school, your coach may not be able to have you play as much. If you don't have something to eat now, you may be hungry later. If you lay out a natural consequence for your child in advance, and then they actually test this, it's important to let the natural consequence take its course and not rescue the child from the situation. They may forget their backpack or homework and want you to bring it to them. They may forget their sports practice equipment and want you to bring it. If you have already walked through the plan with them for how to avoid this problem, then it's okay for them to experience this natural consequence. Sometimes a small failure can be a very big learning experience. And when this happens, it's important to be empathic and to resist the urge to gloat, "I told you this would happen," or lecture. Instead, come alongside them and connect. "I feel bad for you that you forgot to take your soccer cleats to practice and could not play as well. We talked about having all your gear in the bag for you to remember. What do you think went wrong? What could you do differently next time?" Or, "You seem pretty upset that you weren't able to go to the school bowling trip because you forgot to turn in your permission slip. I'm sorry you missed this experience. What could you do to remember next time?" Or, "Gosh, you sound like you were cold and wet after getting caught in the rain today. What might be a better strategy to avoid this next time?" There are times when natural consequences are not appropriate. The first is when a child is potentially in danger. Being around hot appliances or campfires, playing with electrical outlets, running near traffic. These are a few examples that we should never use natural consequences. A second time is when the child's behavior could harm others or be disruptive to others, like interrupting a concert or some other activity. If the child is making a lot of noise at a school play, it would be better to remove them from the audience rather than to disrupt everybody. Or if the child is throwing wood chips at another child on a playground, it would be helpful to intervene immediately to avoid someone getting hurt or starting a fight. A third situation where natural consequences seem ineffective is when the child does not seem to be really impacted by the consequence. For example, if not turning in homework leads to lower grades and the child doesn't care, it would be important to consider other approaches. If you would like to add this valuable parenting tool to your toolbox, take a moment and think about the situations or times when natural consequences could be helpful. Remember, this tool cannot be used when a child's safety is at risk, or the rights of others are violated, or the child seems disinterested in the consequence. What are the times when this may be a helpful intervention for your child? Make a list of times that you might want to consider using natural consequences. Sit down with your school-age child and go through the problem as you see it. Discuss what you won't do the next time this happens and what your child could do instead. Help your child to problem solve the best steps to avoid the natural consequence. Here is an example. Billy, it is no fun that we argue every morning about you taking a jacket to school when it's chilly out. What do you think we should do to avoid this argument? I wonder if you just put a jacket in your backpack, then you would have it with you anytime you felt you needed it. Thank you for tuning in and considering this parenting topic. I hope this information added to your growing toolbox of parenting your child or children. Please consider exploring other topics in this series. Remember, no one parenting tool can do everything. We need many tools to become the best parents for our children. Your children's future depends on you and the time and effort you invest in them today.